Okay, so hi, my name is Anna. I'm a member of HEET, and for my community conversation, I'll be talking about a map I made of Cambridge by heat distribution system type and fuel. So it might be a good idea to go over what a geomicrodistrict is, just in case anybody here doesn't know. So a geomicrodistrict is a street of buildings that share a ground source heat pump system. So a ground source heat pump system exchanges heat with the ground, can store and supply heating and cooling as needed there. So for example, right now it's hot out. We want to be cold inside, so we could send our heat out there and store it there until winter, and then we could bring it in when we want to get rid of our cold. How it works is a thermal loop transfers the thermal energy to the individual heat pumps. So here you can see the thermal loop. This is how it gets to the customer. And then these are the boreholes that go into the ground. So the thermal loop brings it to the heat pumps, and each building has their own individual heat pump. And then it goes through a gas exchanger like over here. And then it goes through whatever heat type distribution system was there before. So geomicrodistricts have this aspect of having a little bit of a balancing act. So it's important to have balance in the heating and cooling loads because if you're sending too much of one into the ground, it can cause long-term changes to ground temperatures. So for example, if you're sending too much heat there and you're sending less cold, then the ground is gradually going to get warmer. And then that will decrease the efficiency of the system. So one cool solution to this is that in a geomicrodistrict, you can have the exchange of heating and cooling. So for example, an ice hockey rink wants to be cold, they want to get rid of their heat, and then a pool wants to be warm and they want to get rid of their cold. So those two loads can go to where they're most needed, and then that they cancel each other out. You don't need to put anything into the ground. And then this makes geomicrodistricts scalable because as they get bigger and bigger, there are going to be more heat sinks and heat sources incorporated, and there's more of this load canceling. So why do we need geomicrodistricts? So currently more than a quarter of gas pipes in Massachusetts are leak prone, which leads to a lot of gas leaks, which are bad for the environment and a safety hazard. So currently the plan is to spend $9 billion over 20 years to replace the old pipes, which you can see here on the left, with the new pipes, which are on the right. And that will be paid back over 40 years. Except the problem is that Massachusetts carbon emission reduction goal is 80% by 2050. And to achieve that, we need to move off of fossil fuels, including gas. But if these new pipes are being paid over 40 years, then people are going to be paying for essentially a stranded asset. So geomicrodistricts are a good candidate to replace the old pipes, not only in terms of safety, but also in terms of cost and for the environment. So for transitioning off of gas, it's good to have a strategy. There's a current trend of having people who can afford to transfer off of gas are doing it, but that leaves behind customers who can't. Then these customers kind of have to support the entire gas system, and that of course raises prices for them. And these are people who can least afford to have higher gas costs. So it's a little bit inequitable. So instead, a good strategy is to prune the gas infrastructure tree. So if we think about gas infrastructure in a state as being a tree, like on the right, you can see that they're kind of like these little twigs out at the ends. So it would make more sense to start at these twigs and cut them off, and then to gradually move in until you get to the trunk, instead of kind of just chopping off big branches all over the place. So HEET is currently working with Eversource on geomicrodistrict pilots. There are 3 scenarios. The first is a single multifamily building, probably in a low-income area. And the main question for that scenario is, can geothermal infrastructure fit on the property? The second one is a large mixed use area in a dense urban environment with both residential and commercial buildings. And this is to really look at how efficient mixed use is for load canceling. And then the third one is a low density residential neighborhood. And this is really to look at what it would be like installing the infrastructure there. So can they do it in the streets, how to do it between houses, etc. And then at the bottom, you can see pictures of the 3 different scenarios. So there is some general criteria that applies to all of the pilots. So the first one is to have mixed heating distribution systems to test performance. So just to make sure that everything works with the infrastructure, we want to be trying a variety of heat distribution systems. We want to have a mixed heat use and the presence of thermal sources and sinks for load balancing to look at that. And that is especially important for the second scenario. And we want it to be in an area with leaky gas infrastructure to take advantage of the opportunity to get rid of these gas leaks by replacing them with geothermal. And then also to have it in an area where a gas pipe replacement is already planned. So if the utility was, or if Eversource was already planning on going in there and digging up the gas pipes, why not just replace it with geothermal? And then the last one is willing participants, which is always helpful. So with this in mind, I made a map of Cambridge by heat distribution system and fuel. And I made it to help with site selection for the pilot program. I made it from data from the Cambridge Tax Assessors database and the Cambridge GIS dictionary. And I actually just finished making this map. Haven't really gotten to try it out. So I was thinking maybe you all could help me out and see if you can find anything that helps with site selection. So I will go on over to the map to give you an idea of how to use it. And this is it. So right now everything is checked. So in the first layer list, you can see the different heat fuels. So we are going to be probably specifically looking for gas, since those are the pipelines that we can replace. And then other fuels are here, including a combination. The second layer list is of heat distribution system type. An important thing to here to note is that steam cannot be used because it just does not work with the geothermal infrastructure. But you can also see there's a combination. So whenever there's a combination, it's either the tax assessor's database actually just wrote in combination, or when I combined everything, I got for that building that there was more than one heat fuel type or heat distribution system type. And the third one is building type. So we have single family home, 2-family home, multifamily home, and then apartments. And then down here we have mixed use. And then the last one is the legend. So right now it has everything, but whatever you have checked, you can then come over here and look at, just so you know what you're looking at.
And can I throw in one thing just to make sure that it's, so what we're trying to do here, what Anna has done incredibly well is taken a lot of data from the Cambridge database to basically be able to map the infrastructure so that all of us can begin to look and find out where a good site might be for a geomicro district or for any infrastructure replacement, any energy infrastructure replacement, because we're going to have to start replacing it to move to the system that we do want. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Oh, I forgot an important one.
Yeah.
Sorry. And here are the points of interest. So the little red bubbles are Eversource unrepaired leaks. And then you can also see where Eversource is planning to replace gas pipes in the next 5 years. Then there's some examples of heat sources and sinks. So for example, ice rinks and supermarkets are going to be using refrigeration, so they're heat sources, and then pools are going to be a heat sink. And then I included central air as well, because there is kind of an incentive for people who don't have central air to move on to geothermal and to participate in the geo micro district, because they will have the opportunity to get air conditioning since it does both hot and cold. So I put it in there, kind of goes in with the willing participants category. And I can send that link out in the chat in case anyone wants to look at the map and play around with it and see if any of the streets might match any of the criteria for the pilots.
And can you zoom into one area and sort of that you think might be interesting for any reason, or
Yeah.
a possible site?
Yes. I think I'm going to uncheck a few things though.
Okay. And we'd love help, other people's feedback about, like, is this helpful and interesting and clear?
Yeah. Like I said, I just finished this, so criticism is fine, and thoughts and comments are very much appreciated.
Would you be able to provide the shape files so that we can play with this on our own?
Yep. They are all on my ArcGIS Online account. I can make sure that that's public and I can send that out. So here, for example, I'm going to look at gas for water and air, and then combination heat distribution systems, and then looking at apartment buildings. So this might go for the second pilot, which is focusing on high density areas. And then I would also click mixed use. And then in the last one, let's see, can look to see if the streets are aging and if any of them are, if any of them have a planned replacement. So down here you can see these buildings are gas, and they do have gas leaks around them. And there are some planned Eversource repairs. So they could be good criteria.
So just to be clear, the green buildings are the gas buildings, right? And the red map points are the leaks?
Yes, so green buildings are gas. Then I left on the distribution systems that use water and air and a combination. And now I'm looking just at apartments with 4 to 8 buildings, or 4 to 8 units, or above 8 units. And then I'm looking also at the gas leaks and the planned replacement areas. So this would probably be aimed more to the second pilot, because that was looking at high density. And I also left on mixed use buildings, and it was looking at mixed use buildings as well. So you can kind of tailor it to the different pilots, or to whatever you're looking for, really. And then also, if you want to click on the buildings, you can see the address, the heat distribution system, that's just a general category, the heat fuel, and whether it has central air.
Does the property tax data that you've got, does it include things like living space square footage and number of bedrooms, kitchens, that sort of thing?
It does. I think that the data, in general, when I was looking at it, it was like some columns had data and some didn't. So for example, like out of all of the tax property data that I was looking at, only maybe half of them had information on the heat distribution system and heat fuel. So it might be the same because I wasn't looking at those categories, but some definitely do have that information.
Okay, I was just wondering, because that never seems to show up on your map when one clicks on things.
Yeah, I specifically left that out, but that's something that I could pretty easily put in. I just wasn't sure if it was going to be useful for the site selection. And there were also different kinds of buildings as well, and I kind of put them into these broad categories of commercial, multifamily, single family, two family, and then apartments. But yeah, there's a lot of data there, and I can see it being useful in a lot of different ways. So this is kind of just a starting point.